Hello, I'm Tim Wilde, and I just got back from seeing Avatar: The Way of Life, or The Way of Water. It felt like it sucked a lot of my life just sitting there through that. I'm just gonna give it my quick ratings because I don't have a whole lot to say about it because it didn't really do too much for me. It wasn't. It doesn't bring up that much conversation. I don't know. I save the whales. I guess that was the message, and family, whatever. Family is our fortress, but now at the end of the movie, our fortress is this island. I don't know. I don't know. I guess they kind of counter their own point there, but whatever. I don't. I saw Star Trek Voyage Home. It was a much better movie about saving the whales. I know I'm not the first person to make that comparison. I haven't watched any reviews about this, but it's the most obvious thing. And the whole thing felt like Waterworld, but I'm going to get into that just slightly, not the plot of Waterworld. But this movie, I wasn't eager to go see it. I saw the first one when it came out in the theaters because I had to see what all the hype was all about. And then it broke all those records and everyone went to see it and said, oh, so amazing. I go watch it with the 3Ds and everything. Honestly, at the end of the first Avatar, during the whole last half hour battle, I took off my glasses, just, I don't know, to let my eyes relax for a little bit. I wasn't like tormented or anything from the 3D experience, but I was just like, whatever. I took it off because I didn't want to be wearing the glasses, and literally I forgot that I had taken them off. That's how like not invested and not involved I was with the 3D. It didn't impact me. I didn't care. The creativity of the world and everything, and I've said this before, it was really good. I liked that you felt like you went to another planet, whatever this planet is called, and you were there. The creativity of the creatures and the geography, the geology, all of that, the plant life, the weather, the way the rocks look and everything, the floating mountains, all that stuff. It really felt like you were on an alien world. This one is no different. But that's one thing I gave it credit for, and all this attention and the hype it had, the first one, for all the special effects and everything. Yeah, it was there, but just coincidentally, like 2 months later, I went and I watched The Dark Crystal, and the movie, not the Netflix series. That was a long ways away. I watched it and I was sitting there thinking to myself, this Jim Henson creation had just as much imagination and was just as interesting with new creatures, plant life, all that stuff. You felt like you were in a new world, only they had to actually build this stuff with puppetry and practical effects. It wasn't just a bunch of CGI artists, which is cool, but I was like, I would say that the Dark Crystal imagination and creativity is just as good as the Avatar world and James Cameron's vision, only you had to actually make it. So I say Dark Crystal better and that stuff. But that's it. No one's talked about this movie for 15 years or whatever, and I've never heard it. I don't see stories, I don't see comics, I don't see books or spin-off series or action figures, like nothing. No one talks about Avatar because that's how unimpactful it really was, other than the money it made in the theater. That's all everyone remembers. And then we had the little craze from the 3D, and then now that's died out. So I went and saw this one in IMAX on 3D, and in 3D on IMAX, just because I had to experience it to see what we've accomplished in the last 15 years. And I gotta say, not much. I don't care about 3D. I know I'm not the only person that doesn't care about 3D, but if this starts a new revolution and movies start coming out in 3D, I will not be in attendance. It was cleaner than a lot of 3D movies are, because it was filmed and designed for that, but it was computer animated for that. But I don't know. I feel like people talk about like the superhero movies being like a roller coaster ride. You go and you sit in the theater, you get jerked around, you experience sound and lights and action and everything and special effects, and it's kind of fun. Then you're done, you don't really get much out of it, and you go home. And that was a big argument about whether or not superhero movies and comic book movies are actual films, the big blockbuster movies that we have today. I would say this movie is just like that. It reminded me of, and through many of the scenes, I was like, I remember the little videos that you would put with just colors and shapes and stuff, and you listen to like Mozart and Beethoven stuff for little babies. Is it Baby Einstein? This is like adult Baby Einstein. where the adult would sit there and watch this CGI whale swim around beautifully in the CGI water with these CGI characters and just hear this nice little soft score. It was like relaxing and meditating. And I was like, that's great. This is not entertaining for me. It's really not. And I can sit and I can appreciate cinematography. I can appreciate that stuff. I love nature shows and I love watching space and National Geographic, stuff like that. I think that's awesome. I can watch it and appreciate it. This was just like, but I'm not going to sit there and watch it recreationally if there's not a narrative about real life stuff. This was like, I don't really care about these fake whales. You know what I mean? Anyway, so I'll just get it. The movie just didn't speak to me. I felt the same way about the Dune movie, and everyone loved that. It's just, this is not a universe I care about. I'm not interested. I'm not invested. It's way too politically minded, and that's fine. We knew that what it was going to be like that, and there's nothing wrong with making movies like that. It's just, I don't know, it just doesn't connect. It doesn't resonate, and it's just like the Dune universe. I don't understand how that's so popular. I don't think it's that interesting, and there's so many books and everything about Dune, and this big successful movie that just came out, and now we have Avatar, but I'm like, why do people care about this world? It's boring. Anyway, all right, so let's say my 5 categories out of 2 to get my rating out of 10. Story and script, it was boring. I'm not saying it was boring like it was a bad script, and it was just obvious. It was very there was nothing interesting that happened. I guess I'll say spoilers. I'm not going to spoil too much, but the only thing that was kind of interesting was the kid that was, well, I mean, that's one thing. This is all Next Generation. Yes, Sigourney Weaver's daughter. Yeah, the whatever his name is, the general, the bad guy general's kid, and then you had the family of whatever his name is, the main character. I can't remember because I don't care. This is all like their kids, all of them, like literally, even characters that didn't have kids, like the General, Sigourney Weaver stuff, like this is just their kids, and they had to write a way for them to have the next generation, because that's how you make movies nowadays. You have to, it's just youth. Ever since Hunger Games, probably before, it's just this the Gen X and the millennials, like they just want to see themselves on screen, which is why we have Willow the way it is, and all these other movies, whatever, Divergent series and all this stuff. Anyway, this is just the millennials and the Gen Xers in the Avatar world going on their little mini adventure while there's a bigger plot going on. Now, the kid, the Jungle Boy Tarzan kid with the dreadlocks, Spider, I think is his name, the General's kid. That was kind of going somewhere interesting. So as far as story and script, well, I guess I'll put that under characters. The overall story is just whatever. Save the whales. Here comes the man to come in, harness the energy, and they're, oh, you're just going to waste the rest of the whale? Yeah, we don't care. It's just about what profit we get, all that stuff. Whatever. It's just white noise. And I'm not saying I'm not sympathetic to those issues. I'm just saying, like, in this movie, that's all it was. It was propaganda, and it was dumb and obvious and boring. So I'm going to give it a 1. It told a story. Do I even want to give it a 1? It wasn't like bad. It wasn't like bad dialogue. It was just really obvious. So I guess that's a 1. I mean, 1 just means it did the job. So 1 out of 2. Oh, nothing special. Characters, I'm going to give that another 1. I mean, they were just themselves. There was nothing like stretching that happened. What I was going to say about the kid Spider, if at the end of the movie, with all that setup they had earlier, they didn't do much with it, where he watched they found the footage of the wreckage from the first movie where the general died, and it was his dad, and the guy that embodied the personality and the memories of the general, the Avatar guy, he was like watching the camera, he crushed his skull and all that stuff. It was like, hey, this is foreshadowing. This is the guy that is the general, but not exactly a general, kind of like how they did with Thanos. That's like, this is Thanos, but it's a different Thanos. Here's the general, but not the general, only he's an Avatar body, crushed the skull of the kid's natural dad, and then the kid is watching the camera of the girl, like hissing and stuff when she killed the general, and when the dad killed the general. I thought that was going to come out later on, where he is going to like have this little battle and this conflict of, do I care about these people and how vicious they were, and who killed my father, and the imagery with the arrows and everything, which triggered the bad guy, but it also should have triggered the kid. But all they did at the very end was he grappled with that, and when he was watching, they came back to that at the end fight where the lady, whatever, I can't remember their names because I don't care, was like killing, the mom was killing up everyone, and she was getting all really vicious. Then he was like watching from behind a piece of metal, and he was just kind of peering over, and he was just like, he just kept watching her, and he was just having these kind of like flashbacks of how nasty and vicious and vile she is, and how that animosity is what killed his dad. And is he going to come out? If he had come out and done something wicked and either killed her or stopped her from doing, like Anakin cutting off Mace Windu's hand, something like that. If he had obstructed the family and it caused a casualty, like the other brother dying, that would have been much deeper, much more interesting to me. All they did with that tension was they had the standoff with the knives, and then the mom, like threatened to kill the kid, but she didn't. And then he's like, oh, she cares about me. And she saw the reaction from the general that he also cared about the kid. And why? Where did it go with that? He saved her. Okay. Or, I'm sorry, the kid saved the general at the end, saved the bad guy from drowning. And so now he'll be back in the next one. Okay. That's fine. But, it wasn't a good setup. Remember at the end of X-Men 2 where you had, whatever his name, Pyro was sitting there playing with it, and he had that conversation with Magneto, and Iceman was the good guy and Pyro was the bad guy, and they were going to have this little feud going on later on. And you saw like the bad guyness, the wicked behavior, the arrogance, and the violence, and the bitterness that Pyro had. And then Magneto was like kind of playing with that when he played with the fire and the magnet or the lighter and stuff. And at the end of the movie, Pyro went with Magneto because he was like, you know what, I think this guy gets me. And they kept doing all this stupid dialogue where they would look at the kids like, I get you, I see you, all that stupid crap. That was fine, but it didn't really go anywhere. It's just like the whale, the bad guy whale. And we have this outcast whale. And he's like, well, we have the outcast kid who connects with the outcast whale. And no one's going to believe him. And at the very end, I see the whale for who it really is. I see the boy. And then the dad says, I see you, talking to the kid. That was all weird. So it's just like Hook. Remember in Hook, you had Hook adopting the kid, Peter Pan's son, whatever his name was, Jack, and that was the main conflict at the end. It was that he was like, Jack or Peter was like, come home, and he was like, I am home, and he grabs Hook. Like, that's what could have happened here. I think it would have had better depth, more interest, or more intriguing changes for the characters, better twists, and it would have had some depth and some levity to it. I think levity is not the right word. So characters, I think that was a missed opportunity. So what they did do was just you had the same thing. You had a girl fish person teaching them how to breathe, and at the end you have this really hammy thing with the dad, and the kids are teaching the dad how to breathe, and the girl is saying, don't worry mom, it'll be okay. And then the other girl, because millennials come in and save the day, and she swims in with all the light goldfish that they got from Sheldon from Big Bang Theory. I don't know, it was less obvious and so dumb, but no characters were interesting. The only thing they could have done they didn't do, and whatever. I wasn't that excited about it. Music was decent. It did the job. It had good score. For the scenes that you're just watching this boring CGI, it went along with it. With the action, it went along with it. It wasn't distracting. It's not like I could hum back an Avatar theme or anything like that. But it did its job. It wasn't like mind-blowing or anything, but I'm going to give it a 1.5 because it was better than average. It wasn't distracting, and you're not supposed to notice a good score. That's what makes it a good score. But whatever. I'll give it 1.5. It was fine. It was good music. Now, cinematography and special effects. Now, in this kind of movie, they go hand in hand. I'm just going to say cinematography. I don't want to be a jerk, but I'm just going to say the visuals. Okay, there were some really cool visuals, especially with the 3D stuff, even though I don't really care about that. There was some things that was neat. Some of the stuff that happened in the water was cool. But one thing that I thought was really neat was there was the shootout early in the movie in the jungle where where it showed the characters fleeing from the military guys. And they were running on these branches and stuff towards the camera, and the guys were shooting kind of random shots towards the camera, which meant towards the audience in 3D. That was kind of cool. I wasn't like jumping in my chair or anything like that. This wasn't like the 60s, but like that idea to have them kind of shooting these projectiles, because a lot of times when they do movies designed for 3D, they force those optical illusions, and they put like shooting arrows towards the camera or pointing spears and stuff like that. having carcasses floating in water like in Jaws. Stuff like that is hammy and cheesy, and it's obvious, it's distracting when you see that. But stuff like this, just having the bullets kind of shooting kind of towards you, that kind of stuff was kind of cool. The camera work, how they were swimming, how they were running in the trees, the flight paths of the birds, and even the vehicles, of the watching the boats skimming and stuff like that. All that stuff was pretty good. Was it like the most incredible thing I've ever seen? No. So I'm not going to give like a 2. I don't think it was like absolutely astounding, because most of that was just done by the CGI. I don't know. I don't want to give it a 2. It was good, but I wasn't like, oh my gosh, look at that shot. Like if you're sitting in a theater with me, I'm always framing the screen, being, look at that shot, look at that shot, look at that shot. I wasn't really doing that in this movie. I was appreciating it in my head, but I wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is stunning. I'm not going to make posters for my backdrop on my computer from anything in this movie, but it was good. It was fine. Again, recreating a nature film. So I'm going to give it a 1.5, not a 2. Special effects. All right, this is the steak and eggs for this movie. This is what it is. The sizzle. Is it a 2? Yeah, it's a 2. Of course, it's a 2. I don't think they did anything that's like that no one else could do, but there's a lot of work put into it. You can see, and I the only observations I heard from people about it were the water looks like real water. I will say it does, except for when they're underwater. This is like the cleanest, most perfect water I've ever seen. And I was born in Hawaii. You know, I remember the water being very clear in different areas, and being in like natural water. Even pools is, you know, you have chemicals in there, but like this water, whenever the camera would bob up and down into the water, you would see clearly, just perfect, just transparency, like it was a jug of perfect water. And then you would just see the CGI creatures, the plant life, the coral, the fish and everything, all that stuff, and the characters swimming. All that stuff looked great, but there was a texture, the waves and the surface, and people walking in water where it connects with their body movement, connecting with the CGI water. All that stuff was really cool. But it was just, there was this texture of this mix of the water is not so clear. It's a little cloudy underwater, and it didn't look like that. It looked that looked a little fake. It was fine for this movie, but like if you watch footage from like scuba divers and stuff like that, it's murky. Even clear water is a little murky. Like look at this poster. Even that's like a little murkier than was in the movie. The exception to that was at the very end of the movie, after the battleship, the airship, like started sinking, and for some absolutely random reason, it flipped over. That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't care if part was filling up; it's just gonna sink. Did you watch the Titanic? It just like flop completely over. Anyway, that part, once the ship had gone down, there was debris and bodies and things like that. It wasn't just floating objects, but it was murkiness. You see particles and gunpowder and dirt and just shrapnel and just stuff in the water. That's when it looked real. The whole first 2/3 of the movie, it wasn't quite like that. But special effects were fantastic. Everything looked good. Everything looked real. My most impressed thing. The thing I was most impressed about was this review's going long, I'm sorry, was the scaling they did with the characters, where you had a kid who's having an interaction and then gets in a arm hold or makes physical contact or hug or something with the Navi, is that what they are? Where they're much taller, that it looked real. It looked really good when they're just even line of eyesight, whatever, where they're having conversations and stuff. That looked really well done. I mean, this has come a long way from like Jar Jar talking to Obi-Wan Kenobi or something, you know, where it's not quite there. But this is it was perfect, pretty good. But then you also had them touching and interacting so much better than back when we had like Gollum wrestling with hobbits, you know. It was all CGI and stuff, but it still looked cartoony. This didn't. They've come a really long way. It was very impressive. So got to give it a 2, even though I think some of it was over the top. That's the other reason problems I had. Oh my gosh, this movie did not need to be 3 hours plus. This could have been done in 2 hours. It could have been done short on that, but it would have been missing too much. It would have been kind of choppy for how bloated this plot was in this story, what they were trying to establish. Also showing off the scenery and the water and the animals and everything. That all adds to it. I don't have an issue with slow pacing. That's not my issue. But I do have an issue where it's too bloated where it's just, okay, you're just trying to impress us and show off, and there's a point where it's like, okay, whatever. So I'm gonna give that comes out of story and script though, and editing part of that's all part of that. So whatever, 1 for script and story, 1 for characters, 2 or 1.5 for music, 1.5 for cinematography, 2 for special effects. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 10. Is it worth seeing twice? No. Is it worth getting $1 billion and setting records and stuff? Am I so excited to see what happens next? No. Do I care enough to remember the characters' names? No. It was fun though. It had some fun stuff in it. Nothing happens. Just like the first movie, everyone's like, "This is whatever, Dances with Wolves," and what was that? The Fern Gully, and so everyone's putting all these movies what the first one was. You could do that with this one. I'm not going to bother. It's all been done. It's interesting. Oh, one more thing I'll say about the world. I liked the subtle differences between the Na'vi and the Wateries. The Wateries, how they had the different fail. They had kind of a scaly, kind of a flipper type of a hand. Their eyes were different shapes. Their ears were sharper and pointed back. Like when you're living in the forest, you have bigger eyes because you have to see at night, and you have to have bigger ears because you got to hear things around you. And you don't need your tail the same way. But when you're swimming in the water, your eyes are different. Your ears are shorter and pointed, and like your fins, your appendages are all different. Like that was really cool. I thought that detail. But again, this is all world building. That I don't know where that really fits into it. I guess story and script, or the characters. It was really well done, but mind blowing. No. So 7 out of 10. That's it. I don't have a lot to say because I don't really care. If you go see it, great. If you really loved it, great. Why aren't they making more? I know they have like 5 more movies already planned and having already filmed a bunch of it, but whatever. Not burning to see the next one, and just like I'm not burning to see the next Dune movie. Yeah, whatever. It isn't. It's just not for me. It's not for me. I'll watch stuff about the ocean on National Geographic and have a much better time. So anyway, all right. Well, thanks for watching. I'm Tim Wilde, and those were my wild thoughts on Avatar: The Way of Water.